Aloha and welcome to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where two dudes from halfway across the world talk everything green and gold. I'm Mike, and there's Iowa Joe. Joe, this is our draft recap episode for the 2024 offseason. How you doing today?
It's our last episode for the 2024 draft cycle. So, it's about time. It's been a long off season. It's been a long preview session. A lot of great guests. Again, want to thank everybody who came on and anybody who followed along our draft stuff. Same thing for our live stream Friday night. Thank you for everybody who's joined us. If anybody stayed there for as long as we did, then, kudos to you. Great guests, great people. Yeah, I mean, it it was a little bit different this year because it just seemed like the talent coming out didn't match up to what a normal Packer. Uh, they didn't match normal Packer parameters, so it was a really difficult year for any kind of previewing. But it is what it is, and I'm ready. I'm ready to start anew, get the season going, and let's just get some football going.
Yep. So we're gonna just go through what Green Bay did over the 3 days of the draft this weekend. Also, the undrafted free agents that they were able to bring in. Not a long list this season, just because they didn't have many roster spots after the draft.
Well, and this is just
I
the ones
guess
that we know for sure have been signed. This doesn't include like rookie camps or anything, what they'll do after rookie camp and everything like that.
yeah, exactly. So, excuse me. So, without further ado, I guess we'll get into it. So, uh, how do you want to handle this? You want to just go round by round? How are
Yeah,
you
we'll
feeling
just
about
go
this?
round by round and go from there, talk our feelings. And even if we touch on some of the other things, like overall, the first round uh, for everybody seemed to go pretty normal, minus a couple of picks that kind of seemed outside the box, and people are scrambling to figure out what they did. Like, I know we talked about this on the live show. The Michael Penix Jr. pick for Atlanta was weird, especially after just signing Cousins. Bo Nix to Denver seems a bit odd. And then, not that he's a bad player, I just think it was a little high. But Ricky Pearsall to the 49ers was a little weird. But he's a good player. Just I think it was a little bit high to be taking him in the first round. But so we'll touch on all that. But yeah, Packers first round pick.
Yeah. So Green Bay went the way of shoring up their O line. Took offensive, they say tackle Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. And so far, Gutekunst and LaFleur have been adamant that they intend to let him battle it out for the left tackle spot with Rasheed Walker and see where the cards fall. So we'll see how that goes through rookie training, the rookie camp, and heading into training camp. But uh, like you said, Joe, we've kind of covered this one a bunch during the live stream on Friday. Any further thoughts that have come to you over the past 36 hours since the live stream?
I'm I'll keep saying it that I'm not a huge fan of the pick, but it's not because he's like a bad player or anything. I don't like taking that type of player in the first round when you've got so many question marks on what he's going to do. Is he going to play tackle? Who the hell knows? Is he going to play guard? Who knows? Is he going to play center? Who knows? I mean, they're pretty adamant. I mean, I think it was LaFleur said something today that obviously we've got to look at him at left tackle because that's where he played his whole career, but we want guys who will play up and down the line. Well, that doesn't necessarily tell me that he's slotted in at left tackle. That just gives me coach speak for, well, we're just going to put him wherever we can figure on putting him. Well, like I said, I'm not a big fan of taking those types of draft picks in the first round. Again, not saying he's a bad player, not saying, it was a waste of pick, it was stupid or anything like that. But without having a surefire idea of what you're going to do with them, that's not what you do with the first round pick. That's something you do with the second or a third or a later round pick. But with the way I think it surprised a lot of people because with the way the draft board fell in the first round, they could have had their choice of anybody, and they take Morgan. Okay, that's not the sexy pick by no means, but it is what it is. They see more in him than what we can see, so you just got to keep going from there. I know Brian Maffey is pretty adamant that he'll be the right guard. I'm I don't know if they're really looking at him at tackle, then I think that ups the means of moving Zach Tom to center and slotting him at right tackle, because I think the big thing is, and from the experience the Packers have had in the past, usually when a player comes in and they have quote unquote short arms, they play better on the right side than they do on the left side. So it just seems smarter to put him in at right tackle than at a left tackle. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, kind of just to piggyback off what you're saying, basically everything that you and I kind of talked about why Graham Barton wouldn't have been an exciting pick for us, you can kind of put the same thing on Jordan Morgan's plate. Um, and we're not bashing the guy, but you know, it, to say that we're doubting the pick a little, doubting his ability to play left tackle. Yes, we are, just because it's not, the for sure, like, oh yeah, like he fits there and stuff, but we'll see. It sounds like I do like the kid's attitude. I do like that, he's coming in with a desire to be a Packer, all that stuff. And I do think that that kind of stuff matters. I think it makes a big difference, that he's a hard worker and all that kind of stuff. But kind of like you were saying, it's hard to see what the fit on this roster is for Morgan. And that does, it does dampen the excitement for the pick a little bit, because you're like you said, even if it's like a Rashawn or a Lucas pick, the last, two of the last, what is that, 4 years already now, it's like, okay, sure, it's not a guy who's going to start right away, but you can see the track of this, what this guy is going to take to get to being a contributor on this roster. Whereas with Morgan, it's kind of okay, we think he has a lot of tools to be a good O lineman, but we don't know which of the 5 spots he's going to play, kind of thing. So, um,
Right.
yeah,
And I
and
and I got to
that's,
say, I
yeah,
don't doubt that he can play left tackle. I think he could play up and down the line. He's got obviously he played left tackle in college his whole career in college, and he's got the ability to move around. But I'm still a Walker believer. I think he really turned it on towards the end of the year last year, and I think if he can stack the success going into this year, he could be the left tackle for the future. Well, if that's the case, then and they view Jordan Morgan as a left tackle, that's a waste of pick, because you've already got your left tackle of the future on the roster, and now you got a backup. Well, you just spent a first round pick on a backup. So then you got to hope he can play right guard, because right now that's the biggest hole that they've got is right guard. And I'm not saying Sean Ryan has shown me anything to prove that he earned the starting spot. So that was the big gap in the offensive line that I saw going into the draft. If he can come in, play right guard, great. That's what we need. If Walker doesn't stack his success and doesn't play it as well as he did towards the end of the last year, okay, then you can slot him at left tackle. But I like you said, when they took Rashawn, when they took Lucas, you knew what the progress was going to be. You knew Zadarius and Preston were free agent signings, and one of them wasn't going to be with them going forward. So you knew Rashawn was going to have to take over at some time. You knew Preston was getting older. Rashawn was coming off a ACL tear. You knew you were going to need another edge rusher, Lucas Van Ness. It just that's the whole thing. I have no doubts about his playing ability. It's just the spot they took him and the doubt of where he could play is what bothers me with the pick.
yeah. So I think we've kind of hashed that out many times over, the past 2.5, 3 days. So, but like I said, I'm excited that Jordan is excited to be here. He has a lot of good film from college, and we'll see where he ends up lining up in preseason. Like that's sort of the where the excitement is in the pick, and hopefully he'll be on the left side of the line, on
But
the perimeter.
to be fair, what draft pick isn't happy with going, getting drafted by a team? I mean, it's very, 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 very rare that you get a kid that gets drafted by a team that says this fucking sucks. I don't want to be here. Trade me now. So yeah, they're all excited to be here, but really, what are they supposed to say? Fuck you guys. I'm not coming to play for you, even though you spent draft capital on me.
Yeah, but better that than, like you said, it's more often the majority, but still good to hear it. So, day two into our live feed, Green Bay addressed a lot of issues up the middle of the field on defense, but also addressed the need on offense. So in the second round, they took Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker out of Texas A&M, and safety Javon Bullard out of Georgia in the second round. And then in the third round, came back, took a running back, Marshawn Lloyd from USC, and then doubled down at linebacker with Teron Hopper out of Mizzou. Um, so, kind of like I said, coming out of day two, my first impression was they filled needs. They weren't necessarily the players I liked, but at least it seemed that Gutekunst and the rest of the front office, knew that they had holes on the roster at safety, linebacker, and they did. I'm not in the war room. You're not in the war room. None of us are, and these are, they're going to say it every time that these are the guys that they really liked. But, we did hear rumblings that especially Cooper was linked to Green Bay in a lot of ways. We know that Gutekunst has had a preference for drafting Georgia Bulldogs the past few years. And so it was just nice, it's fun to see him go back to the well on those fronts. And then the pick that I really liked the most out of any of the day one and day two picks was Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. I thought they got the potential to have the best running back out of this draft class in the third round, and that's always a nice range to snag. Best player in the class kind of player. And then Hopper is a guy that at the very minimum should be special teams contributor, but according to Joey Van Zumeren, our I'll still say in-house Missouri specialist, he has the upside of a guy to a little bit lower floor, but upside to be a guy who could be a heavy year one contributor for the defense. But Joe, your thoughts on day two of the draft?
I really like Cooper. It kind of worries me that he fell so far, being that this was a weak linebacker class, so it makes me wonder about him a little bit. But obviously, Green Bay played their cards right in trading back and drafting him. I know everything in the world, everybody in the world, and all the Packers and all the are saying that they had the trade worked out before the pick was made and all that. But I'm still, and this could be my bias or whatever, but I'm still on the board that they were hoping DeJean was going to fall to him, and once he didn't, they pulled the trigger on the trade to trade back and you know take Cooper, because all teams work on trades prior to their pick. I mean, there's no doubt about that, but they always wait till it comes time for that pick to be made to actually do the pick, or I mean, do the trade in case somebody falls. And I really think that they were hoping for Cooper. Obviously the Eagles jumped up, they took him, and they ended up with another Cooper. So I mean, I'm happy with it. Edgerrin obviously it was the number one linebacker off anybody's board. Although I do put the caveat that had they taken a guy like Dallas Turner or Chop Robinson, I think they would have made them stand up linebackers instead of down edge rushers. So technically, Edgerrin Cooper was the number one linebacker on in the draft. I'm happy to see Quay's glad to, he's already calling him his running mate. So that's a good thing. I'm kind of weary about the comp to Patrick Queen that they had on there. That kind of makes me a little bit worried, but it is what it is on that. Javon Bullard, another guy that you know was talked about highly in a weak safety class, but he still had the ability. I think what was a couple of them saying that he actually went lower than what some of them were expecting him to go. He is a little bit on the shorter side. I think he's what 5'10" ish,
Yeah,
but
hair over 5'10" kind of thing. Like he's not that much smaller than Darnell was coming out of college, and that's where you know they they have certain sizes they like to hit with their DBs, but I think safety, if you can move, they're willing to overlook some of the size. So, especially if Bullard is more of like a box nickel player, like more of the nickel side of the box kind of player, I think that it's okay that he's not the biggest guy because need a guy who can move laterally and just match in coverage and stuff. So I agree with you there. Like he's not the biggest guy, but the main thing is that these three defenders they took on day two, like I said, they're not the guys that I necessarily would have took, but at least they took guys with athletic upside. Yes, there's some technique work. There's with the two linebackers, especially, there's some between the ears work. There's some classroom study hall kind of work that needs to be done. But I mean, that's the case for most rookies. It's just a matter of how much and how able they are at learning. Learning, being students of the game. But the main thing is that you took guys who can play football but could be better with some if the coaching helps them reach their ceiling kind of thing.
and
And
what's the other thing that they can do? They can tackle, and that's the
yeah,
one thing the Packers defense has been lacking for a long
yeah,
time is consistent tackling. So again, I'm like you said, Goody went to the well again for a Georgia player. I think he did well with this Georgia player. I think Hafley will be able to use him all around the field and not more
and
than.
I'm glad you bring that up because that's the part that in the past I would be way more down on these picks because I'm like, oh great, they're gonna try and have Bullard play deep half safety and Cooper is gonna have to like sift and read. Like he's still gonna have to make reads. You can't play linebacker without making reads, but his responsibilities are a little simpler in a 4-3 than they would be in like a 3-4 where it's like you've got to sit back or you've got to come up and make you got to beat the blocker to the hole kind of thing and stuff. Like it's a little more it's a little more I know this sounds ass backwards, but the way the read and react works in a 4-3 is it's a little more free flowing than in a 3-4 where you have to be aggressive and on top, you have to be aggressive responsively. Whereas in a 4-3, there's a little more I don't want to say freelance necessarily, but you the plays are kind of laid up for you a little bit more. And the like you said, the upside is that these are athletic tacklers. I know Hopper comes in, a lot of people are like, oh, but the advanced stats say otherwise. But I think his is more, he's a guy that would get himself a little bit out of position because he would have some misreads or he would take some false steps. But like Joey was saying, those are things that he was getting coached up on as he went through his college career. And so the hope is that he keeps ascending on that track. And then by year 2 or 3, you have a guy that you're like, okay, this is another, third, fourth linebacker who's one of your primary sub package players at the bare minimum, but is a guy that, has the ability to run around the field and make plays for you. So I see the vision, and I do trust that Hafley is more apt to put guys in positions to succeed than any really of the last 3 defensive coordinators the Packers have had, and that's a big deal moving forward.
Yeah, and then the other two, Hopper and Lloyd. Hopper, I don't know a lot about. To be honest, I really didn't pay attention to him much. Uh, I know I have been seeing that he's probably going to be more of a coverage guy and that's what they need because right now they've got. I mean, Quay and Edgerrin can cover if need be, but the three of them, him, Cooper, Quay, and McDuffie are more your downhill thumper type, rush the passer, and play the run a little bit more. So having that extra guy that can be a coverage guy is going to be, an automatic win in that column. And then Lloyd, I really have no problems with him. He was off of my draft board just because of the height, and he's only like a quarter of an inch off of the bare minimum, but he's built big. I mean, he's what, 5'8" and 3/4 and 220 pounds. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's a ballerina type where he's 5 foot, 100 pounds, and you got to worry that he's gonna be busted in half every time he gets hit. He is coming off an injury. I think he's a little bit older. He started out at South Carolina, ended up at USC. Obviously a lot of the talking heads are talking it up. Which one was it? Was it Jeremiah or was it Rappaport that said that
Jeremiah
they,
liked him a lot.
yeah, had him as like the best running back in the class or whatever? I don't know about that one. I still am a big Jonathan Brooks and Jalen Wright uh, guy, and Ray Davis is one of my favorites. I think Lloyd is a little bit better than Davis, so he's got that going for him. He's got the pedigree being at USC for the last year or two, uh, and he doesn't have to come in and be a workhorse. He can sit behind Josh Jacobs. Maybe he'd be battling it out with AJ Dillon, and then of course you've got Emmanuel Wilson and uh, what's the other one? Merriweather.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
Ellis Mary.
yeah, something like that. So there is going to be some competition there. There's no guarantees on anybody except for Jacobs. You'd think there's a guarantee on Lloyd just because of the draft capital they used on him. So there is that. But I mean, so far, if I would have to give a grade on the players 1 through 3,
5 or
well,
the 5 picks
I'm
through the 3 rounds. Yeah,
yeah, I'm saying round wise. So rounds 1, 2, and 3. I think cumulatively it'd probably be a B minus at the moment, just
yeah,
because of some of the question marks or whatever. But and this isn't based off of anything other than what I've seen out of them, what the consensus is. Not that, oh well, this is a horrible guy, they can't play, so that lowers the grade. No, it just, I think one of the big things was Hopper went a little bit higher than he should have. So it kind of worries me with that whole third round curse thing. If they, is it going to end up like a Josiah DeGuara where they took him too high and
more. I think more along the lines of like, did you just take Oren Burks again, kind of thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's more the concern I have with Hopper. And the main thing, I would grade the first 2 days of the draft the same as you. It was like I had like a B-ish, B plus on it. But the main thing is that these guys, like I said, the most important thing is that these guys all have athletic upside, and the kind of upside that would allow this to be an A draft class in
Oh yeah.
like 3 years. Which technically every draft class does, but like you said, our questions about this are more what exact roles are these guys gonna play, as opposed to like, I just don't see it, or what the hell is that pick kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
the fact that the last of your third round picks is that kind of question. More. We can debate about Morgan, but they from everything we've heard from LaFleur and Gutekunst, they have a plan for him, and they view him as battling it out to be, to use a McCarthy term, one of their 5 best going into this regular season.
Oh yeah, that's what
And
they've been saying all ever since
yeah,
the draft. We want
yeah,
to put our best 5 out there, and
yeah.
okay.
And if that is the case, that's, what, it doesn't really matter to me at that point what the 5, how the 5 alignment is. If Morgan can push to be in that group, then you know what, that's a pretty good pick. So I can't complain too much if that's how it plays out. So I mean, like I said, I could have some gripes about the players. Like I would have liked. I thought Junior Colson would have been a better fit alongside Quay Walker,
You
but
would.
but for football reasons. But the main thing is that they address needs. You know, as much as people say don't draft for needs, but I thought they addressed needs without really stepping outside of the box. And I don't buy too much into consensus boards and all that kind of crap because I do think in the right position, guys can play above the quote unquote consensus positioning and all that kind of stuff. And we've definitely seen guys play well below consensus positioning, not just on the Packers, just overall guys who just, you know, for whatever reason, just flop out of the NFL. But I do think the reason to be excited, especially about the defensive players, is these guys are going to be put in position to succeed. And also, you know, we'll kind of go into it as we get into like the preseason and like projecting the season out. But the one thing too for fans when you're reading into like training camp reports and preseason games and stuff, don't be concerned that like Javon Bullard is only doing one thing or that Tyron Hopper is only a coverage linebacker. That's the general track for rookies. Like, unless you're a top 5 or 10 pick, you're not expected to be a leader, you know, a leading player on your team kind of thing. And we've seen Rashawn and Lucas, you know, they're picked one pick apart. I know they're, you know, 3 draft classes apart, but, you know, one is the 12th pick, one is the 13th pick. And they had a clear role, but they weren't immediately edge one on their roster and stuff. But I think that you're gonna see Bullard have a defined role from Halfley to start as a rookie, and you're gonna see Hopper. It's like, okay, you're gonna just be an ace on special teams, but we also gonna have you come in on nickel and dime backer kind of responsibilities. Cooper, we're gonna keep your responsibilities simple. You know, you're just gonna sideline to sideline, just attack the ball carrier kind of stuff. Want to see them excel at those roles, and if they can take on more water this, you know, hold up more water on their end of the deal, great. But that's really how rookies should be brought along, is like you give them, you know, it's like we were talking about with the receivers last year. Is what threw off the year is that your 2 vets in Watson and Dobbs were hurt going into the season, and your guy in Reed who was supposed to be your slot, and your Wicks who was supposed to learn how to be a perimeter NFL receiver behind Watson and Dobbs, they all had to get their roles elevated because of injury. So you hope that the guys in front, you know, whether it's McKinney or even Anthony Johnson Jr. being able to, you know, step in as the starting strong safety, McKinney obviously being the deep safety. You have guys who are more veteran who are able to begin the season as starters, and you have the rookies kind of fill in roles and then grow into bigger roles as the season goes along. So don't get discouraged that you know, Bullard is only playing nickel, or Hopper is only seeing the field in sub packages. The main thing is they're seeing the field, and that's the most important thing. Like the only thing you should worry is like there's undrafted free agents who are getting in above these guys. So yeah, like
Well,
take
and
everything
that's
with the proper grain of salt going
and,
ahead
and
as we move
that's
forward.
why you know, not to keep beating a dead horse, but that's my kind of issue with the Morgan pick,
Right.
because at least these other guys will continue to see the field in some way or you know, shape or form, whereas Morgan, unless they're going to start him right off, you know, comes out and wins a starting job right off the bat, you're not going to see him.
Yeah.
And I would rather use that on a you know, a day 2 or day 3 guy instead of my, you know, number 1 pick that's not going to see the field. I know I'm a lot different than other people with that, but you know,
Or if you're gonna get a guy, if you're gonna do the Lucas, the Rashawn kind of thing with an old lineman, it's gotta be a guy that you're like, this is definitely our left tackle of the future. He might not, you know, we're gonna let Rashid start because, you know, he has the continuity with, you know, playing next to Jenkins and stuff like that. But you know, this guy is definitely the future at the position, you know, and you know, but because we can't for certain say that's where Morgan's going to play, as much as, you know, there's reasons to question if he's going to be able to do it. But that, like you said, that is where we kind of have to tap the brakes on the Morgan pick, where it's like, okay, like where is this guy going to play and how is he going
Right.
to play and stuff. So
And then to go back with what you said, you're going to at least see Bullard on the field. You're going to at least see Edgerrin Cooper on the field. You're going to at least see, you would think, Marshawn Lloyd on the field. You're going to at least see these guys hit the field at some point just as a rotational type
yeah,
player. So it is, yeah, it is.
and on the Lloyd pick, fans do it every year. Why do it? The thing is, like, in preseason, you expect that Dylan and even Wilson are going to be ahead of Lloyd for some portion of preseason. The main thing is, like, Lloyd isn't inactive the whole season, kind of thing. You want to see
Right.
him take reps as the year goes along. It's like you said, especially as a third round pick. And I know that the third round curse and all that kind of stuff, but we saw Tucker grow up. There was concern that Tucker actually sucks. Kind of Tucker Kraft isn't really a good player. And then he blew that out of the water as the year went along. And so that's sort of the track that you're hoping to see Marshawn Lloyd take this season too. So just patience, like preaching patience with some of these picks. Like, it's going to take some time for some of them. But moving along, heading forward into the rest of the draft class, heading into day 3, Green Bay had a bunch of picks, and with their first pick, they moved up actually using one of the picks they got in the deal they made to move back for Edgerrin Cooper. They used one of those picks to move up in the 4th round and take safety Evan Williams out of Oregon. This one, for me, it kind of falls in the same box as the Javon Bullard pick, where not necessarily the guy I would have taken at that spot. I liked DTD. I'm gonna mess up one of the names in his name, but the Texas Tech kid, I would have preferred him at this spot. I thought he was a better all-around safety prospect, who offers you more positional versatility, whereas Williams, I think, is a box guy, and that's his role. One comp that I've seen made for him is Aloha Gilman with the Chargers, and he's a similar athlete, and I think that being that type of athlete limits your ability in terms of play what kind of safety you can play. But Williams was a productive guy. We saw him produce in the Pac-12. And I do kind of hate this, but when and I hate it when the Packers do it with their guys, and I hate when other teams do it with, like, guys the Packers draft. But there's clips of him sacking Caleb Williams and things like that. So we've seen him produce against higher end competition, but Williams was added to continue to bolster the safety room, which obviously needed a facelift coming into the draft, despite Xavier McKinney being our big ticket free agent signing this offseason. The safety room was basically McKinney and Anthony Johnson Jr. And what Gutekunst did, through this draft is he added 3 players to that room. We'll be getting to the third one shortly, but Joe just Gutekunst continuing to add to the safety room, but more of a box type safety with the Williams pick.
This one is the first one that I really, really started to question, because I think this was definitely an overdraft per se. I think a lot of the consensus was that he was maybe a 6th round draft pick. The view is maybe he'll be able to do special teams to start out, and maybe we'll be able to become some, like a backup or even a productive starter at some point. So this one's the first one that I really kind of question. I know he comes from a bigger school in Oregon. I know that his 40 wasn't the greatest, but he is safety, so you're not expecting him to be, man-to-man coverage and stuff like that, as long as he can stay deep. And I don't think he's got the recovery speed to be able to make up anything. And I think there were some questions on his tackling. So this one is the first one out of the draft that really I have big question marks on. So yeah.
Kind of like I pointed out, I thought that DTD out of Texas Tech would have been a better pick, just because I just had him as like a day 2 prospect, and I thought that he's able to wear more hats in the safety room than being, like you said, where Williams, he's got to be a box safety, and if he can't do that, you're like, okay. And it's day 3, so different degrees of how much weight you should put on a day 3 pick. But we've seen how much good Green Bay has gotten out of especially round 4 picks. So it was a little bit of a disappointment to see a pick that might be limited in terms of ceiling coming through this early. Like I said, especially for a guy they moved up for, and when you had other prospects on the board that you're like, maybe they could fill a few more roles for the Packers. That was their lone pick for the 4th round. In the 5th round, Gutekunst went with O lineman Jacob Monk from Duke and another safety, Kitan Oladapo from Oregon State. Monk looks like an interior O lineman. I think they listed that he might be able to play some center. And Oladapo, I feel like he's the most versatile safety out of the 3 that they drafted in this cycle. But what were your impressions of the 2 5th round picks?
I think they said Monk. Was it Monk or was it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Monk played center, guard, and right tackle.
Yeah.
And when they announced the pick, he was announced as a center.
That's what I thought,
So
but on the Packers website, he's just listed as an O lineman, and I'm a little thrown back that I don't know if that's just because Morgan's just listed as an O lineman too. But
right,
yeah, I swore that
I'm
when
looking
I
at
was
the.
following up.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the draft tracker, and it has him as a
Yeah.
center.
Okay, that's what I thought I saw too when it was announced. So, but yeah, maybe part of the planning for ahead for the future. Myers is a free agent after the season, so you've got to have options, and you don't want to necessarily be playing musical chairs with your O line. Moving Zach Tom around or even Jenkins around, kind of thing.
Now this one, although I like the pick, but this is the one where it starts making me question Morgan in the 1st round. Because okay, well, this guy supposedly can play center, guard, and right tackle. Okay, well, if he hits, and let's just say we leave Tom at right tackle and we put Monk at center, then you got to hope Morgan fits in at the right guard position. Okay, let's say they decide Josh Myers is better than what the rest of us think and they re-sign him to a 2nd contract. Okay, and then you've got right guard battling it out between Morgan and Monk. Or you've got left tackle battling it out between Walker and Morgan. So that's where I say this pick right here is the one that really started me having big questions on the 1st round pick. Good player, he's built pretty good.
High RAS too. Yeah,
Yeah,
high test.
Raz is which is I think the only one out of all the ones that they drafted. Hopper was the only one that didn't have that high RAS.
I don't think Williams's
But
was that great either. Yeah.
okay, yeah. But according to his profile on here, 5th-year starter, 2-year team captain. I was trying to see what it had listed as his age, but it doesn't have it on here right now. But I mean, other than that, he fit athletic profile that the Packers look for. This is usually their prime place to take offensive linemen. We saw it with Runyon. We saw it with Lindsley. We saw it with I'm blanking. But anyway, this is usually where they take their prime guys to fill that middle of the offensive line. So I think he'll be easier to slot in than James Morgan is. I mean, I hate to keep going back to that, but like I said, this is the 1st pick that had me questioning the 1st round pick.
Yeah.
And then
It just does get back to the whole you want your 1st round pick to start playing immediately kind of thing, whereas Monk is more of like a long game kind of pick, being a 5th round O lineman.
right.
So yeah.
And then Odalipe, I know he was well regarded by a lot of content creators. I think he was Maggie Loney's favorite. I have no problems with the triple dip into the safety group. I obviously the Packers needed it. I It does make me wonder about Anthony Johnson Jr. and what their ideas are for him. I know he was just a seventh round pick, but he was a well regarded seventh round pick, kind of in the same sense that Carrington Valentine was. So it makes me wonder about him a little bit to the point, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later after we finish out the picks. But it kind of makes me wonder a little bit about maybe they transition him back to corner and as maybe like a nickel corner or something, or have him as like a hybrid safety corner. But Oladapo, sorry, I pronounced it
That's
wrong
all right.
earlier. Um, Big guy for safety. I would trust him against a tight end if he goes up to it. Numbers all look good. So does come from a smallish kind of school, not like super small, but uh, I love this. Shorter arms create some inconsistencies as a wrap up tackler. Makes me
Which
wonder if
I'm
Mafi wrote that.
which I'm looking at it and I'm like, he's got over 32-inch arms, which for a safety, I'm like, you can't be expecting a safety to have much longer arms than that because there's linebackers with who don't have arms that long.
Right.
So yeah,
So like I said, tripling down on the safety position, although I do have questions about at this point in the draft that defensive tackle hasn't been addressed yet, edge hasn't been addressed yet. I know LaFleur came out and said that Kingsley didn't have ACL surgery, but he is going through rehab. But that's still they're kind of thin at the edge position in a
yeah,
way. So yeah, it
yeah,
just they're thin there, so it makes me wonder why they wouldn't spend capital on it.
yeah. Like my like I did wonder that, but my guess is that their thinking is like we do have three players we like a lot in Rashawn, Preston, and Lucas there, and we have one big free agent signing in Xavier, and that's it, kind of thing. Like you said, we both liked how Johnson Jr. seemed to be tracking as the season went along. Obviously, we understand that he was getting some snaps out of necessity because Savage and Ford both got hurt, but it always seemed like he was playing relatively well in his appearances, and he was getting playing time in the playoff games as well. So, but at the end of the day, he's still just a seventh round pick, and at another position that I know we'll bring up when we get to one of the pick that was made there. It's one of those where I understand them restocking that safety room, but I'm like you. There's a couple other positions where I'm kind of like they weren't that different than the safety room necessarily, and you didn't really address them when there were some chances to. So,
Yeah,
but moving ahead to round six, yes, round six at this point. The Packers had just one pick because they dealt their second sixth round pick, and they took Travis Glover out of Georgia State. He played, I believe, left tackle for Georgia State, but because of his size and movement skills, he's looked at more as a right tackle or potentially a guard. But just a big physical blocker. Needs some technique work, but I mean, like that's why Rasheed Walker made it to the seventh round in the 2022 draft. Is you're gonna have guys with whether it's size or or athletic upside, but there's a hole in their game, and Glover is no different. Small school plus needs some technique work, so not a surprise that there's some work needed, but there's some physical upside there at that spot. So, but what do you think of the Glover pick?
it surprised me just because of his size. Because that really 6'5", 332 kind of goes throws all the dirty word threshold out of the window because just him being 332 alone, the Packers don't typically draft that type of player. but we're getting into those rounds where it's just you throw a bunch of shit against the wall and hope it sticks. And if they can get him, you know, I, I don't see him more than just a project. Again, according to this, he was another 5-year starter. So uh, again, I'd have to look at his age to see where it fits, because you would think he's a project, and if he's 24 years old, that project's not going to last long.
Yeah. Well,
So
okay, he's only turning 24. Well, not only. He's turning 24 in August. So, yeah, it is one of those, whereas Monk is turning 23 this season. So, um yeah, a little bit longer runway on some of these guys and stuff, but yeah, it's interesting. It's just there were some, like, they're more typical athletic tackle types, but
yeah,
like, and I always did kind of wonder if at some point LaFleur would really lean on Gutekunst and say, like, I need more physical blockers. Not to say that they would make a full-on departure and like not get guys who could pass protect, or get guys who can't pass protect, I should say. But I always have wondered if LaFleur would ever really put his foot down and say, like, you know, I need guys who can create movement in the run game, because that's how I'm going to get the best out of my play action game. That, like, that kind of angle. But until it actually happens, it's hard to say. And Glover's a 6th-round pick. Like, I know that the joke is like Goot will always find a way to keep all his draft picks. He did 2 years ago when he had like 10 picks or whatever. But last year, what's it called? The Central Michigan running back, he didn't make it. I know he was on PUP, but he's
yeah,
still,
Lou Nichols, and
yeah,
then Grant DuBose got released, but he came back on the practice squad,
yeah.
and yeah,
So I do think that Glover is going to kind of have to go the route Caleb Jones has gone so far. Obviously, he's not as big as Caleb Jones is, but similar type of movement skills, but long arms, big, meaty physical blocker. So it'll be
and see,
interesting
I
to
don't know
see
about
how
the
he looks.
arms. Do
He
we
has
know
like
a measurement
34.
on his?
His arm length was like 34 and a quarter or something like that.
Yeah, see, they don't have that measurement on the NFL profile. They
Got it.
just have him at 6'5", 332 with no arm or hand measurement. And obviously he wasn't in the combine because there's no stats on that either.
Yeah. For whatever it's worth, Rass actually has him at 6'6", and then 34 and 3/4 inch arms, which can't tell. A picture can't tell you everything, but it does kind of look at, when you look at pictures of him, he's looks like a lanky guy. But
With the size, it makes you wonder if they'll try to position him as a defensive tackle.
maybe TJ Lang played D tackle in an NFL game.
And
But
Troy Guion played left tackle in a friggin'
oh
NFL
yeah,
game.
that
So
was worse. The Lang one kind of worked out. And then in the 7th round, you're just taking you're just taking full on from the seat of your pants home run swings. It was nice to see Gutekunst kind of do a Ron Wolf and take a quarterback late. Michael Pratt from Tulane, guy who has some physical talent. Just a guy who's thrown a lot of passes, has a relatively live arm, and the hope is that you can train him up, have him look good enough in some preseason games that you can maybe Aaron Brooks or Matt Hasselbeck trade him in the a couple years down the road kind of thing. So I like it. Always want to keep turning over the quarterback room behind Jordan Love. And then the second 7th-round pick was Kalen King, and he's a guy that if you asked a lot of Big Ten fans before this season, he probably would have had at least a day 2 grade, but he had a rough senior season and he fell all the way down. Didn't run very well at the combine, and so Green Bay was able to snag him down in the 7th round. But I was surprised to see. Were you as surprised as I was to see them address corner this late in the draft?
yeah, I really was. But to go back to the Pratt pick real quick, Lance Zierlein had him projected in the 4th round.
Yeah,
So
no, I know that Mafi was a big believer. A lot of people really liked him as a prospect, but it was sort and
I
there
saw
was
one
even
guy say that this was Jordan Love's Matt Hasselback.
yeah.
You know, take that for what it is, but whatever. But yeah, I'm really surprised that they waited this long to take a corner. Again, that's why it makes me wonder if they're going to try something weird with some of the guys that's already on the roster. You know, like we know Anthony Johnson Jr. has played, played corner for most of his college career up until his last season. So it makes me wonder if they're going to try something with him. Uh, they did bring back Robert Rochelle. Maybe they saw something in him. The LaFleur did say that Stokes is looking good. Um, so it does surprise me. I I love the story behind Corey Ballantyne, but I don't see him being, he this last year was his sixth year in the league. I don't see him having, you know, flipped the switch all of a sudden after 6 years in the league, and now he's a superstar player. But Carrington played well. You got Jair. I wish they would have done something a little sooner. King, though, I did like him. I did watch some of him. Yeah, like you said, and like a lot of the other people have said, that his 2023 tape wasn't great. His 2022 stuff was more applicable. Maybe they've got another Carrington Valentine's on their hands. Let Halfley do some work with him, see what they can get out of him. Uh, but again, it just kind of surprises me with with the way some of the board fell that they didn't take one earlier.
Yeah. It's like circling back to what you and we're because we're on the topic there at the time that they traded up to draft Evan Williams, there were some leaks that turned out to be false that Green Bay had moved up to take TJ Tampa in the fourth round and that I mean I would have been excited
That
with
was a
that pick.
Mafi leak.
But it would have I with you I thought it was kind of odd that they waited so long to address the cornerback room and maybe Stokes looks like he's as as good as he's moving as well as he was as a rookie. Maybe Valentine is the real deal, but that's a lot of maybes to be hanging your hat on. And I would have preferred like you said, I would have preferred that they went to the well at least one more time earlier in the draft. Even just it's still day three, but it would have been three rounds earlier. I would have preferred to see that fourth round pick go to a cornerback, but we'll see how it goes. But that puts a wrap on the draft class. 11 picks. And I like I said, overall I've got about a B on this one. Gutekunst did a lot of work to fill the holes at some pressing needs at linebacker and safety, and also did some work to shore up the O line. But what will make this draft a big success or not great is how those pieces end up fitting in, 2 to 3 years down the road, kind of thing. Especially for a team that I think is legitimately in the pipeline to contend as soon as this season. So you never want
I
to be
think
relying on draft picks, but you do
right.
want to see some contributions right off the bat.
I think mine is probably a low B minus, not quite a C plus, but just a low B minus, because maybe more of the Evan Williams pick. The big question mark I have on uh, Morgan, again, not because of the player, but because of the usage. And then the other one is Glover out of Georgia State. That one kind of confuses me because they went outside their parameters for him, and there's no real clear cut area where they can use him. It was just like it's one of those picks where it's like, oh well, we've got this pick, we can't trade it. We do kind of like this guy, so we're just going to go ahead and take him. That's the way it
Yeah,
seems to me.
yeah. So, and then in the undrafted free agency group, Green Bay has brought in 9 guys. It sounds like they only had 7 roster spots after the draft class, so two people who are probably signed to futures deals are getting released anytime soon. But that list is Donovan Jennings, O lineman from South Florida, uh, defensive tackle James Esther from Northern Illinois, Trente Jones from Michigan, probably a guard, Messiah Swinson, tight end from Arizona State, Rodney Matthews, a D lineman from Ohio, Peter Bowden, a long snapper from Wisconsin, um, Jarvian Howard, running back from Alcorn State, Raylan Goforth, linebacker from Washington, and Julian Hicks, a wide receiver from Albany. And then Acme Packing Company has a group of 5 guys who are reported minicamp tryout invites. Alex McNulty, a kicker from Buffalo, Don Callis, cornerback from Troy, Porter Wilson, the punter from Duke, uh, Michael Bertoya, O lineman from Wisconsin La Crosse, and Rose Stone, a DN, and that's their international player intern. But obviously,
Then
the
there
rookie
was another kicker.
tryouts.
There's another kicker they're bringing in for rookie tryouts.
Yeah, I he's not on this list, but I know you're right. It's not McNulty, but of the 5, the only one I really think has a chance to stick is Stone because he's the international intern guy. Other than that, it's pretty rare for the rookie minicamp guys to make it even to preseason, especially because they're at positions where it's like we just need guys to take up reps more than a position they didn't really address in free agency or through the draft. So, out of the undrafted free agents, obviously I've got my homer in Trente Jones, but the guy who I think realistically has the best chance of making this roster is Bowden from Wisconsin, who I've seen multiple people say was the best long snapper in this class. And Orzik wasn't exactly setting the world on fire with his play. Honestly, I think he was a big contributor to what's his Anders' struggles. Thank you. I thought Orzik was a big problem in terms of Anders' struggles throughout the season. And so if Bowden shows consistency in the preseason, I think he has a big chance of making his way onto the final 53. But anyone tickle your fancy out of the undrafted free agents so far?
Donovan Jennings. I really thought that he was going to get picked by the Packers. They seem to loved him because they had him in for multiple visits. They also gave him a hefty signing bonus. So that tells me that there's really a lot of mutual interest between the two teams. So again, that kind of makes me question the Glover pick.
Right, especially because Jennings is a guy who hits a lot of their thresholds.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah.
Well, yeah, so it kind of confuses me a little bit. But like I said, when you get into the 6th and 7th rounds, it's when you just throw a bunch of shit against the wall and, just hope any of it sticks and you can make something out of those guys. But yeah, Jennings and Messiah Swinson. I've been seeing good things on Twitter about Messiah Swinson. And I just was reading something looking for that other kicker's name. He's listed at 6'8", 260 pounds. That's huge. That's huge.
And it's funny because usually between punters and kickers, punters are the ones you expect to be taller.
No, I'm kickers. Talking this Messiah Swinson.
Oh yeah, he's massive.
He's
yeah.
6'8". That's bigger than Theo Johnson was, and I was really big on him out of Penn State. So that could. I don't know what he is receiving wise, but that could easily be the new Mercedes Lewis for this team.
Yeah. And so Ben Sims will have some competition this offseason. But yeah, Joe, after going through the draft class, undrafted free agents, any final thoughts on what Gutekunst was able to do over this weekend for the team?
Not really. Again, I wish they would have hit some different positions in the draft with some of their picks. I knew that they were going to double dip at some positions, even triple dip at some positions, but I wish they would have done a little bit different with some of their picks. And no, I don't mean by taking Cooper DeJean. I'm not that much of a homer like Mike is, but I I think there were some other players at some certain positions that I would have rather had than what they picked. But again, I'm probably going to put it at like the lower end of a B minus right now. This is just our prejudgment based off of everything that we've seen, everything we've read, everything like that on these picks. Ask me again at the end of the year, and I can give you a better guess at what I rate the draft picks going into it. So, but no, other than that, I just want to say again, thank you for everybody who was either on the stream or was on one of our shows or who's listened to our shows and watched our stream. I know at one point we got over 200 viewers at one time on the stream. So, that's really great to see. Hope everybody enjoyed the goofiness that we were bringing and some of the live reactions we were giving. And honestly, we had a lot of smart people on there too, so giving a lot of good insight on things. So, and I'm not talking about Mafi. Mafi's clear out of that conversation. But, again, thank you everybody for giving us your attention for I think it went for almost 5 hours.
Yep, we had a lot of fun with it, and that's the main thing. It's just more. It's the atmosphere of we're just people having fun with the draft, talking story, sharing our thoughts, but really just enjoying each other's company. And like Joe said, we appreciate that you all took the time to spend that. Depending on where you are in the country, evening, afternoon, or like Daniel and Nick, lunchtime with us. So we appreciate that, far and wide you all came out to hang out with us. But for today, that's going to do it for our episode. We appreciate you guys. Excuse me. We appreciate you guys following all of our content. Please be sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Ohana_Packers. We will continue to do our drawings once we hit follower thresholds. So please make sure that you are following the pod's Twitter handle to be eligible. Sorry, had a brain fart there. Joe and I appreciate it if you're following our individual accounts, but you must be following the Ohana_Packers account in order to be eligible for the drawing. Please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. We've got merch. We've got streams of all of the podcast episodes. We've got blog posts. Amongst the merch, we've got coffee, sweaters, tumblers, hats, and within those all come with color options. And my wife just got her t-shirt and sweater. She really likes the material that both are in. And we just hope that you guys will continue to support us in any way. We appreciate all the support. Whether it's via the merch, via following our reading our content, or following and listening or watching our podcast.
Or if you just want to send us cash, we'd appreciate it. No checks.
Oh yeah,
cash would be great.
That's always nice too. We will not turn that away at the door. But please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe if you're really enjoying what you're hearing. And whether it's positive or negative, please give commentary feedback, as we want to be putting out the content you are looking for. The Green Bay Packers went in, did some spring cleaning, and shuffled the deck on parts of their roster through the 2024 draft cycle. And now it's just the long haul between the end of the draft and preseason. But tune in here. There's a lot of milestones along the way we're expecting this team to hit. That's June 1st. On June 1st, Devondre Campbell's money is going to come off the books. Expect the Jordan Love deal to hit. Maybe the Love deal will come before that, but especially after that is where you might see some offseason extensions for guys like Kenny Clark or TJ Slayton. So that's a milestone, a landmark to watch out for. Another landmark date to watch out for is the 5th round option deadline. Eric Stokes is in the crosshairs for that one. We will be sure to cover all of that in our upcoming episodes and upcoming blog posts. So please keep your eyes here on Ohana Packers for all of your Green Bay Packers news and content. For Iowa Joe, I'm Mike. Go Pack Go, and aloha.